is Erin Tapahe. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation, and we are part of the Art Heals the Jingle Dress Project, and we're here in Minnesota for the purpose of dancing and healing.
The heart of our idea is to actually go out and to heal the land and heal the people. 100 years ago, the Jingle Dress dance originated with the Ojibwe people during the pandemic in 1918. And so we kind of feel like this is a great time for us to do what we're doing, and there's parallels between our project and that.
I'd always heard the story about the Jingle Dress dance tradition, that there was a little girl who became very ill, near death. Her father had this vision that ultimately saved her life, and this little girl became the first Jingle Dress dancer.
So my name is Eugene Tapahe. I'm with Tapahe Photography. I'm the owner and photographer. The project I'm working on right now is called the Art Heals the Jingle Dress Project. It actually originated from a dream I had. I dreamt one night that I was actually in Yellowstone National Park, and I was sitting in a green field, and I was watching bison kind of grazing out on the field. And as I was sitting there, just enjoying the scenery and enjoying the moment, I realized that all of a sudden these Jingle Dress dancers started coming onto the grass. And then all of a sudden the song started, and they were started to dance. And it was really beautiful, and I really took it to heart that this was a sign for something that was something that I needed to do. So when we do go out to the lands, we're actually going to places where our ancestors have walked before. And so it makes us feel good when we go out there, because we're trying to also, along with the healing, we're also looking at it in the sense of the reclamation of native lands. Reclaiming the land, and also we're there to heal the land, and we're there to heal the people that are supporting us, and also just all people in general during this pandemic.
I'm Brenda Child, a professor of American Studies and American Indian Studies at the University of Minnesota. I'm Red Lake Ojibwe, and I've been working on the history of the Ojibwe Jingle Dress dance tradition for quite a number of years now. I knew that the Jingle Dress was an Ojibwe tradition, and then it was kind of regional for many years. It was practiced by Ojibwe people of the Great Lakes of the United States and Canada, and then very quickly it moved to our Dakota neighbors. But it was sort of a regional tradition among Ojibwe and Dakota people until the later decades of the 20th century, when it became kind of a pan-Indian phenomenon.
I went to Standing Rock. That was where I had my calling to become a Jingle Dress dancer. And so ever since then, it's always been tied with my purpose of healing the land and healing those who are in need.
I'd always heard the story about the Jingle Dress dance tradition, that there was a little girl who became very ill, near death. Her father had this vision that ultimately saved her life, and this little girl became the first Jingle Dress dancer. And I thought that was a very powerful story. But what's interesting to me is that when I went looking at the history of the Jingle Dress, and I knew about it growing up at Red Lake. My grandmother, born in the early 20th century, was a Jingle Dress dancer all her life. She lived into her 80s. And so it was something I always knew about. In 1918-19, there was a terrible pandemic that was devastating to American Indians, as well as other people in the world. And who would have predicted that a whole new healing tradition would come out of that terrible pandemic, one that's still with us a century later? Every time you go to a powwow and you see the Jingle Dress dance performed, you're seeing history. It's about the pandemic of a century ago. So American Indians are very good at remembering the epidemic of a century ago. What's interesting, here we are figuring out now in another pandemic what the coronavirus is all about. The influenza in 1918-19 was very interesting too, because it was very deadly to young people. And that's considered a very worrisome thing in public health when young people die. But there was something about that virus that a lot of young people were susceptible to it. Now we find with the coronavirus, it's the older people who are susceptible to it. This pandemic tells me, as a historian, is how poor we are at predicting the future. A lot of people have said, oh, this is what the United States is going to be like after the pandemic. This is what Indian country is going to be like after the pandemic. We don't really know what the future is.
And just being able to have this project to work on during this time, it's really healed me, and I know it's really empowered the girls to be able to be a part of this project. The locations we've selected are areas where we know that people are going to love to see those images that we've taken there with the girls in the jingle dresses, and then also knowing that those lands right now are needing healing. And so that's one of the biggest reasons we've chose the areas we've been to. And then when they get in front of the camera, their strength and their courage and the women they are, it comes through in the images, and I at times just cry because it's just so amazing to me how wonderful their lives are going to be when they become leaders and when they become our future.
It's been incredible to be here because usually we have 4 dancers, but today we have more dancers, and it's been a blast to be able to interact with them and to see the differences in jingle dresses, and it's the sacrifices of our ancestors that we will continue on their legacy. And I think that's the important parts of dancing on the land that they once were. And my dad had the dream of this project, and it's been giving us purpose, because we know that this purpose is going to be more than just the project now and visiting different locations. It's going to have a lasting impact on the public.